Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this easy sock project drawstring bag. This is the perfect size for one 100-gram cake of sock yarn, and it uses a yogurt lid as a template, which can then be either inserted into the bag after sewing to give it that firm bottom that will stand up on its own, or it can be removed for a soft bag that scrunches up really small. So begin by selecting your fabrics, and I am using two colors, and we'll begin with the one that I want on the bottom, and I will trace around the yogurt lid onto the bottom fabric, leaving, here I left about 3/4 of an inch all the way around for extra space and also for seam allowance. Use the circle you just cut out to make a second one, and so this will be one for the outside and one for the inside. You can use alternating fabrics. Here I am just using the same for both pieces. Then using a tape measure, measure around the outside of the lid or the inside. So this is not the seam allowance, this is going to be the finished length. Once I measure all the way around, that's going to give me the strip size that I need to make the sides of the project bag. Using that measurement, I will then put it onto my side fabric. Here I have this black fabric is going to be kind of the bottom half of the bag, just because I don't have a lot of it. You can use one color for the outside, one for the inside. You can patch them together however you like, but I am just using the length measurement and making it as tall as I am able to. Now I take that cut piece and I'm placing it on top of my other fabric so that they are both going to be the same length, and you can see I'm giving an extra amount of height to the second fabric because I plan to fold it over for the top of the bag. This works out really well since I'm going to be putting in a drawstring anyways. However, you can piece it together differently and that works, but we've got the inside, the outside, and the two bottom pieces now cut. Holding up to see what the finished item will look like, I am going to do my final cut, which is to make the drawstring. Now, if you have a really long piece of fabric, you can do this just in one long skinny piece. This is all I have of this fabric, so I'm going to do 2 strips and sew them together to make a long enough drawstring. You can just hold it up to your bag and see about how long you'll need, and it's just personal preference how long you would like it. These strips are 2 inches wide, which will then give me about a 1-inch drawstring in the end, a little bit less with the seam allowance, but again, preference on what you would like to have there. Our first seam is going to be to sew these 2 pieces of fabric together and just laying them right sides together. This is where they are joined kind of toward the top of the bag, not the bottom. I am just going to sew straight across right here. Turn it so that you are able to see what the in and outsides are going to look like, and I'm just going to use my iron to flatten that seam to begin with. So the way I am sewing this bag will be to have a buttonhole at the front that both drawstrings will come through. So with your project flat, you want to plan where you want that and take it over to your sewing machine and insert the buttonhole. You can also do 2 smaller buttonholes. I'm just doing one larger one that both drawstrings will come out through. We will then sew the side fabric onto the bottom, and you can see my tracing line of the actual distance of the yogurt lid, and that's going to be my template, kind of my guideline for sewing, but I want to make sure to pin it all the way around, and I'm going to do this right sides together on the black side, and then I'm also going to put that bottom onto the floral side. So I'm going to end up with this kind of tube with the circles attached on each edge, and the long seam is not yet sewn. Once those seams are both sewn, I'm going to take it over and use my iron to try to press those out as flat as I can. Again, the more you kind of iron this type of fabric, the nicer we end up getting the finished result. I'm now going to fold it the way it will be in the end, just to make sure everything's lining up the way I want it to. I can see this the line where I had pressed it before, so I'm just using that as my guide, turning it right way and making sure everything's lining up properly. From there, I am going to turn it inside out again, and we'll be sewing that seam, leaving an opening so that I can turn it right side out again. So again, making sure to line up that fabric line, the previous seams, so that that's lined up perfectly, and leaving an opening so it can be turned. Once that is sewn, you can turn it right way out again. However, we still have that little bit of a hole, which is on the inside, that needs to be closed. If you are wanting kind of the best finish, I would hand stitch this, and you can do it fairly invisibly. However, I'm just sewing this for myself, and it's going to hold my sock yarn. I'm just going to run it through the machine. I'm not too worried about it. Next, we are going to make our drawstring, and as I said before, I have these two pieces I need to sew together to begin with, although a long skinny piece works exactly the same. Then I will be turning it right sides together lengthwise the long skinny way, and sewing all the way down to make a really narrow tube that will then be turned right way out. I like to use a safety pin attached to one edge to turn my tube, and it's kind of a fiddly step, but it really is worthwhile to make a nice looking drawstring. Once it has been turned, I'm just going to use my iron to press it totally flat, and I will then use a top stitch to keep it laying flat. And I just want to pick up the edges and kind of tuck those raw edges in so that it is no raw edges are exposed. You may want to try it on your bag to see the length that you want at this time too. Again, it's just kind of easier to make that change now. After that, I'm going to go back to the bag, and I want to make the casing where the drawstring will go. So I am going to press it one more time, again wanting to make sure that everything is laying as flat as possible. It is a little bit harder at this step because it's round, but it's still worthwhile to give it a try. I go ahead and lay my drawstring on top, and if you made yours narrower or wider, you may want a different width of casing, but I'm just kind of using that as my guide to see where I want to stitch. Taking it over to my machine, you can see I removed kind of the front thing on my machine, which makes it really easy to sew these small circles. And I'm going to begin by doing a straight stitch right where my two fabrics are joined together. So once I take that around, I am going to use a decorative stitch just in from the top. Again, you can do a straight stitch here. You can even leave it open if you want it just right at the very top of your bag. This is just, again, personal preference and little details that make a difference in how the bag looks in the end. I can then take my drawstring and insert it into my bag, taking it all the way around and bringing it back out through that buttonhole. You can also sew or put knots on the end, something so it doesn't pull through, kind of personal preference on how you want your bag to look. So here is our completed bag. You can see the drawstring can be pulled and cinched nice and tight so that nothing comes out. You can tie it in a knot, you can leave it hanging. And then also with that yogurt lid, sometimes I stick it in there when I want my bag to stand up straight and it stays on a table really well. You can fold down the edges, you can turn it inside out and have a reversible bag. Just your drawstring will be on the inside. However, you can turn over the edges if you want. There's really a lot of options with this very simple tutorial of different ways you can complete your sock project bag. I hope that this walkthrough was helpful to you. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I will do my best to answer. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, consider subscribing, and I post new videos every Monday. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.